So howdy, I'm Jeffrey Snover, technical fellow. Most people will know me for having invented PowerShell, but turned out that worked out pretty well. So these days I do quite a bit more now. I'm the chief architect for our enterprise cloud group, and so that's Windows Server, System Center, Operations Management Suite, and then of course Microsoft Azure Stack, where I'm spending a whole lot of my time these days. So I want to talk about thriving through the transition. Every now and again in the industry we have these inflection points. And the thing about an inflection point is nothing stays the same. And your career is either going to go up or it's going to go down. Very few people does it end up staying the same. And if you're aware of that, you can make the right calls and do really well. And frankly, that's what happened to me. That's the story of my career. I've been working, doing Unix and VMS, and that was all great, having a great time, doing well. But then at some point I saw Windows NT come out. And I looked at that and I said, boy, that's going to be a big transition. And so I just went all in. I just went all in. I was the most knowledgeable guy. I consumed everything I could do. I was working my butt off, and I became the go-to guy for NT at Digital. And my career took off. I got put in charge of some big projects, and really that sort of set the course of my career. And there's no doubt in my mind that my career would have gone a very different way had I stayed being a VMS systems programmer. Very different career. So these inflection points happen, and you really want to take advantage of them. Now there's this inflection point happening. We all know about it. It's called the cloud. But there's really a little bit more to that, right? Cloud, cloud, cloud. What's that mean? Well, the real essence of why this is such a big transformation and why there are going to be significant new winners, and the people who aren't new winners are not going to do as well, is because the cloud really is enabling businesses to drive their business forward. So concretely, those businesses that are able to listen to their customers really well and then respond very quickly with new applications and changes to their applications, these are the guys that are getting such a huge competitive advantage that it's just driving their business. And the advantages of being a big guy used to be, well, these small guys, they might have a good idea, but there's no way that they can scale. Well, in the cloud, you can scale like that. So all of a sudden, the small players have enormous advantages. So that's the real transition. The real transition is this business agility for those people who are able to take advantage of it, okay? So now let's talk about Geoffrey Moore, right? I think Geoffrey Moore has this wonderful concept, and it's one of the most useful things you can think about in managing your own career. And what Geoffrey Moore had said, he's the guy that did Crossing the Chasm and a number of other great books. But at some point he's had this model of saying, well, there's core and there's context. Every company, every group engages in core activities and then context activities. And a core activity is what he defined as saying, these are the activities that you invest in because they drive your business forward. They deliver customer value, and they differentiate you from your competition, okay? Context activities are all the things that you do that aren't that, okay? You have to do them, but they don't differentiate you, they don't deliver customer value, etc. So now let's take an example at Microsoft, right? At Microsoft, our core business is software. So what do? We invest in trying to find the world's best software talent. If you're the world's best software guy, send us your resume. We want you. No, we want the world's best talent, and then we invest in those people. We pay attention to them, and we do great things. Now then we have context activities, and these are things you have to do, right? You have to have a receptionist, you have to have cafeterias, you have shuttles, etc. But you'll notice that at Microsoft we have no technical fellow of the cafeterias, right? No distinguished engineers of the shuttle, right? We have to do those things, but we really just want to write a check, and we don't want to pay attention to those things. We want to pay attention to these other things. And indeed, you want to be one of the people that is driving your business forward. So I don't know if you've ever heard this story about Ballmer's Facebook. So yeah, Ballmer had this thing, he called it his Facebook, long before there was a Facebook. And literally, it was all the important people in the company. He had a 3-ring binder, and it was beside his bed at night. And before he'd go to bed, he'd sit there and he'd look at all the people that were helping him drive his business. And he knew them all. He knew a lot about them. And so that's why it's a funny story. So I was on spring vacation with my family down in SeaWorld, and all of a sudden I hear this, "Hey, Jeffrey!" I was like, "What the heck?" That's Steve Ballmer. And it's like, "Hi," and we family's introduced, and it's like, Steve Ballmer knows me? He knows my wife's name? What the heck's this? And the answer is that in his mind, I was one of the guys driving the business forward. So you know what? Steve Ballmer knows my first name. He recognizes me, and at SeaWorld, he calls out howdy. Don't think that happens to the guys running the shuttles, right? Because those are context activities. Now, the point is, I'm not trying to say, oh, I'm this big important guy. What I'm trying to say is that you want to be the guy driving the business forward, right? Because things are better there. Okay, so now let's translate that into a set of stops and starts. That's always a good way to think about things. What things should I stop doing? What things should I start doing? You want to stop doing IT the old way. Okay, the IT the old way. The click next admin model, right? So if you're a click next admin, here's the bottom line. Sorry to say it, you're not driving a lot of business value, right? Next, next, next. I mean, you might be a wonderful person, but you're not really driving business value. Okay, so concretely, if you just hit next, you're providing a standard offering that can very easily be replaced at a far better service level agreement and far cheaper by a software as a service offering in the cloud. And that will happen, no doubt about it. However, if you're doing more than click next, if you're saying, hey, this is a great component, but I'm going to turn it into a business asset by doing something different than the other people. If you're doing things the same as everybody else, you're not adding business value. But there are opportunities to take and deploy technology in a way that provide business talent value. That's who you want to be, right? You want to be that guy, right? So you don't want to just be hit and click next. You want to be automating. You want to be adding value. Next is you don't want to have these snowflake servers, right? This is the idea of a snowflake server where everyone is unique and precious. No. Some people like the term cattle and pets, right? So you don't want to treat your servers like pets, right? Where you give each one a name, and when they get sick, you get all worried and you call the vet. No, that's an old way of doing things. You want to move to a much more mature, kind of DevOps model, right? Where you have lots of servers and there's no drama, right? You don't name the servers fluffy. You give them a number, and when they get sick, you just replace them, right? There's no drama. Okay, that's a more DevOps mindset. And it's also about bulk management, right? The ability to do lots of things to stuff. So you want to stop, click next admin, you want to stop treating things like snowflake servers, and what you want to do is you want to start embracing a DevOps mindset. Now, a DevOps mindset, there's quite a bit to it, but the heart of it is in breaking out of your isolated barrier of just being a technical guy. I'm a technical guy, I'm a technical guy, I'm a technical guy. Instead, you become part of the business. Go have lunch with your business people. Go have lunch with a salesperson. Find out what it is your company sells. Why do your customers buy it? What makes them happy? What makes it not? And then kind of think about that and say, well, how can I make that better? Oh, hey, maybe if I could deploy software faster, then when our customers find out, tell us what they want, and we respond to it quicker than the other guys, they'll be happier. Okay, things like that. So you want to, first and foremost, stop. Realize that this is a reflection, an inflection point, a transition in the industry, and invest in your career. That's by far the most important thing you can do. And obviously you're doing that because you're listening to this and attending this seminar. You're doing the right thing, but keep doing it. Now is not the time to kind of lay back and rest on the stuff you learned 5 years ago. Now is the time you want to learn all the new stuff. So invest in your career. Embrace a DevOps mindset, which says get out there, work with your partners, drive the business forward. And then you want to take advantage of our great new technology because it really does deliver your ability to drive the business forward faster. And here I'm talking about Azure, Azure Stack, and if you're not familiar with Azure Stack, that's where we take Azure, the power of Azure, and then run it on your servers in your data center. So crazy cool stuff. So Azure, Azure Stack, and of course Windows Server 2016, where we just have some amazing stuff coming forward. So what you want to do is invest in your career. Stop doing what you're doing. and learn these technologies and learn how to be the, you want to be the go-to person for these technologies in your company. You want to be the hero for your company and be the one driving business forward, because that's where, guess what, when it comes time for reviews, when it comes time for promotions, when it comes time for bonuses, they want to keep those people around, right? Those are the people that get rewarded. Those are the people as managers, right? So now, technical fellow, turns out I get to be involved in some conversations I didn't before that. And so behind closed doors, you do this, right? You say, hey, who are the people who are driving my business forward? What are their names? All talk about them. We say, hey, are they happy? No. Well, why not? How do we make them happy? How do we make sure they see their future aligned with us? How do I make sure that person's here for the next 3 and 5 years? How do I make this a lifelong place for them to live, right? We spend a lot of executive energy on those people. And guess what? Part of that is let's make sure they're well compensated. Now, here's the reality. Here's the reality. There's a budget. And when I compensate this guy more heavily, I got to take the money from these people. That's just math. That's just the way it works. And so indeed, when we focus in on the people driving our business, we're taking money away from folks who aren't driving our business. That's why you want to be part of core and not why you want to be part of context, okay? So then let's talk about Windows Server 2016, because it really is a transformational release, So if you're used to Windows Server and you just want to treat it like your old Windows Server, you can do that. But really what I'm saying is this is a transformational release. I'm laying down the architectural foundations really for the next 20 years of server. And so if you jump on board, if you're the people that figure this out sooner than everybody else, you are going to have a big advantage. So what am I talking about? Nano server and containers. Dramatically lower resource consumption, dramatically lower security footprint, dramatically lower serviceability. Boy, if you can get your stuff running on this and deploy this and get great at that, you are going to have fantastic advantages, and people are going to really kind of turn their head and say, wow. Additionally, we have new ways to configure things with desired state configuration. Of course, PowerShell. If you haven't learned PowerShell, McFly, what are you waiting for? You got to learn PowerShell. Well, the latest version of PowerShell has desired state configuration, and what that allows you to do is to configure your systems en masse and make them be a certain way and keep them that way. So it's really sort of a DevOps management style for servers. We also now have a model where with Nano Server and containers, we have this idea of just enough OS. You start with the smallest footprint, and then you go find the software you want and just the software you want from various package repositories, right? NuGet, PowerShell. We'll in fact have Windows Server components available through the web, and you download those. Then this idea of unit testing everything. One of the ways you go faster is through test. Right? What you do is you make a change, and the question is, hey, can you go home? And when the answer is, I don't know, that's not a good world. And so what you want to do is you want to use what we call Pester. Pester is a unit test framework, and you set up a ton of tests. Hey, make sure this works, make sure this works, make sure this works. And so then what happens is you make a change, and you run the tests. And if the tests all run, that was a good change. If you made a change and the tests don't run, that's probably a bad change. Undo that and go do it again, okay? So the point I'm making is that by investing in testing technology, it allows you to go faster, to take more risks, and with more risks, more return. And then of course, GIA. GIA is a new approach to security called Just Enough Admin. Hey, if you're moving fast, but then all of a sudden you're completely owned and all your business assets are all over the web, that's gonna be a short-lived career. So you want to move fast, but you want to move fast and safe. And so you do that through our new security technology called Just-in-Time Admin and Just Enough Admin. Just-in-Time Admin time limits who can be an admin, for a period of time. Like when you're not working, probably shouldn't be an admin. And Just Enough Admin determines what you can do. You can't do everything. You can do these set of tasks on these machines and only those machines. So this combination, these technologies all in combination allow people to move really fast, to drive business value and respond to customers. And what we're seeing is those businesses that do that are getting such a huge business advantage that they're doubling down. They're just doing more of that. And those people that are doing these things, we see them doing very well. There's a conference I go to, a DevOps conference, and one year we went there and they talked about people embracing this mindset and the huge impact that they had on their customers, their business, and their work life. Because you know what, it turns out, when you do these things, it's fun. I mean, it's really fun. And so these people were having a blast. This year I went, and same sort of people telling very similar stories, but one huge difference. And the big difference this year was they were all in charge. All these people had gotten promotions, they were now in charge of very large groups, and that's exactly the point, right? When you are the person being the hero for your company, if you are the person leading your company, figuring out how to harness these new capabilities to drive business value, it's a nice world. Yeah, so in summary, if there's one thing I could have you walk away with, it would be that inflection points and points of transitions are opportunities. And now is a fantastic opportunity. I want people to stop doing what they're doing, invest in their careers, and figure out how to leverage this new technology to drive their business forward. I will tell you, your career will benefit from doing that.
And we're back. I don't know how fast you managed to teleport over here from your office. And also put on one of your traditional ties.
Yes.
We're joined back now live, in case you're watching this live, wherever you happen to be, with technical fellow Jeffrey Snover. Thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, it's great.
We've already got some questions that are coming up, but I think we should probably go ahead and go with that quiz question that we had. Now, you know the answers. You're not eligible.
I do.
You're not eligible. I'm sorry. Do you know what the question was?
Yes.
Mary Jo?
Yes. So our quiz question was, who invented a Facebook before Facebook? And I'll tell you, this is the one I didn't know. And I know a lot of
We stumped the master.
The answer is Steve Ballmer. And I thought I had heard every Steve Ballmer story, but now I have heard one I did not know.
Nice.
So the winners on that are going to be announced through Twitter, I believe.
They're going to be reached out to by the MS_IT Pro handle.
Yes.
Our social media folks in the other room are going to be reaching out to you directly if you're one of those lucky 5 winners. But we already have questions pouring in for you, so I hope you're okay. You're on tap for the next 20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
I got it clear with your admin, so you're good. Fred from the online forum. So in case you haven't done so already, on the channel9.msdn.com website, there is a form. You can put in your name and the question, and they'll pop up there. Or you can also use Twitter if you're on a different property. Fred has a question here, which is kind of interesting, is what are some of the best ways to invest in your career?
Yeah, so it's never been easier to invest in your career, right? So there's always some constants, right? Your boss is never going to come to you and say, hey, why don't you just take the next 3 weeks and invest in your career? Like that never happened. It's never happened to me.
It happened to me, though.
Oh, that was
Just
when
recently.
they told you to leave.
Oh, that's what it was.
Maybe you want to consider the next week investing in your career somewhere other than
I
here.
need to focus on those core things. Is that what you're saying?
Not context.
Not
core.
context.
Exactly. But no, I mean, rarely do you get the time to invest in your career. So what you have to do is you have to make time for it, right? And there's ways to do that, right? One is, set regular time. I'm going to always invest some time, at least an hour a day or a couple hours a week to invest in yourself. And then, the web has just made it so easy to get all the materials you need to invest in your career. First, attending conferences like this, great idea. If you can't attend all the sessions, well, bookmark it, come back and watch those sessions. So I think that's, and by the way, you can also make videos go faster. I do that all the time. Often I'm like watching these videos at 2x the speed so you can get more in.
If you want to see something really funny, Jeffrey Snover at 2x.
Well, anyway, so you just have to allocate time and just and do the work. There's nothing short of it. Just do the work.
Can I ask?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, because a lot of people are tweeting a variant of this question to me. Being the father of PowerShell, a lot of PowerShell love and questions. So one really nice one from Mike. What does PowerShell have to do with DevOps? Isn't DevOps more focused about developer and not IT?
Oh, no. That's the whole point. DevOps, developers and operators. So it's really the merger. And I don't know if have you ever read the Monad Manifesto?
I have not,
Oh.
surprisingly.
Yeah, so it's an interesting document.
I
to
know
go
what
back
that
and
is.
read.
A codename Monad
Yeah.
was the codename for PowerShell.
Exactly correct. And so in that, I kind of laid out the rationale, what it was we were trying to do. And I was very explicit about this goal to say, I want to have a single tool that can be used by both the operators and the developers. I think I called them admins and developers. But that's why you see a bunch of things you see in PowerShell, like squiggly brackets. At the time, VB had begin and done, begin and end, or do and done, all sorts of crazy stuff. We chose squiggle brackets. Why? Because when an admin goes to a developer and says, hey, can you help me with the script? He's going to see that and say, oh, I know what that is. And we wanted to have this explicit guide path between PowerShell and C#. So no, DevOps is all about automation. And automation, there's lots of ways to do automation, but no, DevOps is not. There's a small branch of DevOps called NoOps, right? NoOps says, hey, there are no operators, it's all developers. This is practiced by all the people right up until they get the call at 3 o'clock in the morning. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, there's something to this DevOps thing.
To get out of this no-ops situation.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Now, and obviously, when you start, as you mentioned in the video, when you start talking about DSC, it pairs directly in with the DevOps principles of being able to do the infrastructure as code, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
Or defining roles for different servers and then seeing if they change and deploying them and the whole Snowflake part. That one is very good.
Right. DSC,
yeah.
desired state configuration.
Correct.
Let's just keep that in.
You mentioned also some references to be able to go off and invest. I need to do a shout out to www.Microsoft Virtual Academy.
Yes.
Some great online free training to get started.
Yeah.
You have a couple of great sessions there with Jason Hemlick talking about PowerShell and talking about DSC for some primers. And also things like edX, believe it or not. I've been doing some stuff at edX recently.
What is it?
edX is the online training from, I think it's MIT to put that one
Oh,
out.
wow.
Oh.
And they have full courses on different technologies, programming, even Microsoft stuff's there as well. I'm actually taking a Linux fundamentals course there.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
I got to brush up my Linux skills for what's there.
By the way, so that's the point. Like all of us need to invest in our careers. I do that. I continue to invest in my career. And guess what? As a technical fellow, it's really hard to find any spare time. So, I spend nights and weekends. My family's not so keen on that, but that's the deal. You got to invest in your career. If you don't, the half-life of technical information is short and it's getting shorter. So you have to continue to invest.
Now, you offered it up, so now I have to ask, what was the last new technical thing that you learned? Just out of curiosity.
New technical thing. Well, actually, I was just talking about this, but before the show,
Right.
I've started getting into ham radio.
Okay.
So that's
Cool.
that's a big thing. But in terms of this area. So of course, Azure, Azure Stack. So we're taking Azure and we're making it available on premises. And boy, talk about jumping into the sea.
Yeah.
So there's Windows Server, and everybody in the leadership team, we've all talked about this thing about at some point you're doing your job, and then you become a part of the Windows Server leadership team. And all of a sudden, everybody thinks you know like every single line of code, and you're like, yeah, that's how. And so each of us has talked about how overwhelming that is. So now imagine that, and then add System Center, Operations Management Suite, and now Azure. So it's a constant swimming. And also when you do these things, it's uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable to reach into an area that you know nothing about.
Yeah.
It's painful. Because all of a sudden, technical fellow, you should know all these things. It's like, I have no clue. So you just have to give yourself permission to feel uncomfortable, to say, I don't know, but then you do the work. You don't say, I don't know, and then sit back. You say, I don't know, and then you lean in and you do it. And boy, the first month, difficult. The next month, difficult. Third month, difficult. Guess what? After a time, all of a sudden, there are these conversations that go on. It's like, okay, yeah, I know about that, and actually I have an opinion on that. Let's do this. And all of a sudden, you're adding value. So.
Now we have, I want to say, Shmuley is asking if you can have a picture of the tie as a background. So before you leave, I will take a picture of your tie. And I'll post it on
Nice.
#TechNetDC. Just for you, because that's the kind of stuff that we're doing.
I've got one.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay,
Go
on
ahead.
Twitter, Mats Hultgren asks, so is the future for on-premises IT spelled Azure Stack and PowerShell? What happens to System Center?
Yeah, so this is a great question.
It
So
is.
this is the distinction between virtualization and the cloud. And they're really different models. In reality, I need a white paper out there to kind of clearly articulate it. But one of the things I talk about is the difference between sort of a restaurant and home kitchen, right? So people want Azure, it's great, love it, but they want to run it on their data center. So that's what Azure Stack. And think of that more like a restaurant, right? You say, hey, I want the experience of food, so you go to a restaurant, go to a great French restaurant, and you get that. That's what Azure Stack's going to be. You get the experience of computing. But then you might say, well, hey, that's great, except this French restaurant, I wanted a chimichanga. You can't get a chimichanga in a French restaurant. It's not going to happen. Or you say, hey, I got the munchies at 3 in the morning. Like, they're not open. So then virtualization is like a home kitchen, right? Where, you do the work. You can do anything you want. Hey, you want to put your systems together using InfiniBand, using storage area networks, using funky networking. You can do all that. And System Center empowers you to do that. But you have to do the work. So you got to, buy the groceries, you got to chop up stuff, and then you got to clean up afterwards. So virtualization allows you maximal control, but then you also have to do the work. Azure Stack's benefit is that it's delivering a cloud experience, and you get to focus more on using the computing.
I got to do a shout out to the folks that are doing stuff on Twitter. Thank you very much for asking us questions. We still have time, got some more to go. Apparently we are trending, at least in the Redmond area.
Very nice.
The Building 20 area, we are very popular.
We are trending this out there. So for all our friends online, keep them coming for what we're going to be doing here. Here's one that is coming up. It's, thanks, Jeffrey, for everything you've done. This is from Maximo. For embracing technology changes does pay and improve your chances for better jobs. For everything you've done. So a good shout out to Maximo for that one there.
Thank you.
That's out there. Again, I really enjoyed shooting that video. You've got a beautiful view of the office.
Yeah.
Was that your office?
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that nice? I've been here 16 years. It's the first time I've had a good office.
Wow.
So, it takes a while, right?
I especially like the background on one of your monitors. That was interesting. Did Mark approve that?
He did not. He did not, no.
It was a complete
Surprising.
surprise. It was a complete surprise. We have Dave asking a question here. Everyone talks about Azure, but I tried it a few months ago and didn't know what to do. How can I get started? I don't want to uproot my existing data center. This might not necessarily be one for you. I will be talking about some Azure stuff on day 3 stuff, but do you have any thoughts? Because you mentioned Azure and Azure Stack, and basically Azure Resource Manager coming down and going into the Azure Stack. How's that been for a transition for you to be able to get those things integrated and working well as the technical architect?
Well, as I say, it's always a challenge, right? So there's 2 issues: the technology itself, and we got great people, and we're just doing the work. And we released the proof of concept a month or so ago.
About a month ago now, yeah.
Yeah, and so we'll continue with that. So the technology stuff's going fine. But indeed, just as you say, you tried Azure and didn't know where to go. Same sort of thing. Good Lord, there's a lot of stuff to be involved. And what about this? And how are we going to do backup? And how are we going to do the fabric controller? And how are we going to do this? And how are you going to do that? And you look at it, and it is daunting. And here's the answer. Just keep going at it. Just keep going at it. Now, with respect to the specific question about learning Azure, I think we have some good training, maybe some MVAs on that, so there's some specific stuff. But my recommendation to you is to just be comfortable with the uncomfortableness. It is uncomfortable. It seems so vast. But, how do you eat an elephant? Right? One bite at a time.
Very nice.
One bite at a time. There's a lot of stuff there. But here's the thing. There's a lot of stuff there. It's new to everybody. So you want to be the first one there, right? You want to be the go-to guy. You want to be the leader in learning this stuff. So at some point, some executive is going to say, hey, boy, we need to go to the cloud. How do you do that? You want to be the one who jumps up and gives the answers and say, well, I've been experimenting with it, here's how I do it, etc. By the way, if you have an MSDN subscription, you already have access to a certain level of Azure as a benefit of being an MSDN member. So take advantage of that. Good heavens, if anybody who has an MSDN subscription and is not taking advantage of that, you are leaving a great opportunity on the table. Yeah.
Likewise, if you also have an enterprise agreement, there may be worked into your enterprise agreement a certain amount of dollar value that you can use as far as training is concerned, as well as access to Azure.com and Azure.com resources. I'm a little biased because I work for the Azure team now, so obviously you can sign up for the free trial as well. And then you just actually discovered something just recently, the documentation tab on the Azure.com website.
I didn't know this existed, and I wonder if other people know.
So it's right, Azure.com, documentation, you can go into VM Compute is probably the easiest way. You can kind of translate your skills from one to the other. There are some quick start templates, there are some walkthrough guides and some very basic stuff, but hey, don't forget, there's different ways you can use Azure. Through the portal to get started, but most importantly, get out of the portal and start using PowerShell.
PowerShell, baby.
All your PowerShell stuff will apply, and you can still interact and work with the Azure subscription, spin up VMs, shut down VMs, configure VMs, all through the PowerShell side. So if you've already made the investment on the PowerShell for the skills and things you're doing, you can definitely still reuse that inside of Azure, including
listen to this guy. He is
including
very
automation,
smart.
including automation inside of the cloud.
Yeah.
Joe Levy's doing some great work in that space.
Oh,
there
yeah,
from the
Azure
Azure
Automation
team.
Yeah, amazing stuff.
And also DSC is also available up there as well, as far as extensions are concerned. But I'll be talking about this on day 3. I'm getting ahead of myself here.
Yeah, but that is the point. Well, you'll see we've been building up to this. So the automation, PowerShell, desired state configuration, and then in Windows Server 2016, things like Pester and unit test and packaging and package management. It's all about enabling you to go really far, really fast, right? To be able to put together these repeatable processes and run it, see where you get. Is that where you wanted to get? No? Okay, go back and change the recipe. Do it again. Is that where you wanted to go? Yes, great. Now go from 3 to 5, 5 to 10, to have these repeatable processes.
I want to do a shout out to Philadelphia. Apparently TechNet VC is now trending in Philly. So
Yay.
shout out to you guys over there and gals over in Philly. I'd love to hear if there's people from across the pond that are watching as well.
I've been hearing from some of them on
Yeah,
Twitter.
let
They
us
are
know what's going
watching.
on, and
Yeah.
people are watching. If you
Yep.
have some people that are staying up late at night from the Southern Hemisphere down in Australia or something like that,
Yeah.
they might be doing some stuff.
I have another question from
okay.
Twitter
Yeah,
for you.
go ahead.
And I feel like I should know the answer to this, but I do not. And maybe it's a crazy question, but with the new One Microsoft, it maybe makes sense. So Adam Wright asks, when will PowerShell run on Linux?
Oh, well, okay, so I can't connect those
I'm
dots
sorry.
for
I'm
you.
sorry. She's got the
Let me
press
write a
background, right?
story right now.
Well, let's talk about motivation. So first off, you see in Windows Server 2016,
Right.
we have a new version of PowerShell. PowerShell is based upon full.NET, and so in Nano Server, full.NET's not there.
Right.
So we had to have port PowerShell to .NET Core.
Oh, right.
So
Yeah.
that's Core PowerShell or PowerShell Core. And so that's going very, very well. Now, of course, .NET Core is available on other platforms. So there's no news today. But again, if you just think about Microsoft and what we are motivated to do, and we're motivated for you to be able to consume as much computing as possible to help you be successful. I mean, we firmly believe that the more you compute, the more you can drive your business forward. So my mission is to reduce the friction to be able to consume your natural level of computing. So, watch that space. Is
So
all I'd
build.
say.
Build.
We have
It's
another
a great
question over here.
conference. Everyone should
I'm
go
going
to
to
it.
divert and deflect here.
Or what?
This
over.
one's coming in from Richard, which is actually kind of interesting. Is it wise for your career to work for Microsoft?
It's worked well for me. Yeah,
I definitely have to say too. I can actually.
There's always, look, there are lots of great places to
Yes.
work, but the thing I love about Microsoft is sort of two things. First is, it's all about the culture and the people. And the thing about the culture is we've always been a place that has had the courage to admit when we've been wrong and then address those things, right? Whether it was Bill's internet memo or the security. I mean, we used to be terrible at security. And Bill said, hey, we're terrible at security and we're going to fix that. And you know what? That was really, really hard. And year after year after year, we just invest and we invest and we invest. So I really respect that culture culture that can admit their, where they're not meeting up to where they want to be, and then invest. And I've worked for a lot of companies, and that is really rare. And I'll tell you what, with that, you can solve any problem. You can. The second thing that's so great about Microsoft is the quality of the people. When I first came to Microsoft, or they reached out and recruited me, I told the recruiter, no, NFW, not interested, not interested at all. Because I had a great job and I was having a blast. And then there was one executive, I don't remember, Dave Thompson. And I had met Dave before and I just thought the world of him. And he reached out to me directly. And I thought, well, I'm not going to join Microsoft, but I'd love to talk to Dave. So I came. And then you meet the people. And it's the people that really sell the place, because the quality of the people and their dedication to our customers is just amazing. So, those are the two things, culture and people.
Awesome.
So
If
yeah,
you're
great
interested,
place.
Microsoft.com/jobs. That's my little plug for that one there on the public side.
It's also a great site if you're looking for illicit information about Microsoft and you want to find out things about unannounced products. Just shout
right
out to
along.
Microsoft.com. Careers.
along.
Mary Jo is an awesome reporter.
Definitely.
You have to tell the story about how she got my press pass page removed.
Oh, nice.
Sorry.
Nice. But we'll be coming back on this one here. We're going to have to take a break because we're going to be coming up next with the next interview. I've already,
Okay.
first of all, say thank you very much
Yeah,
for joining us.
it's been great.
Very
No,
much
it was
appreciate
great
it.
seeing you.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks.
Coming out here and talking with us and spending the time.